All right, so Ray, check this out. It's something I saw just a little bit ago. This is a market adjustment of $10,000, and you can still see these things at dealerships. And guess what? This is on a it's $80,000 total, but this is on a four-door Bronco at one of these dealerships, and it's amazing to think about that you can still see a lot of these dealerships that are trying to mark up a lot of these a lot of these vehicles, and I'm almost wondering if it has anything to do with tariffs and they're trying to find an excuse to bring their margins up. But I also wanted to bring up this similar Bronco right here, and you
Yes.
can see the MSRP on this one $70,000. Invoice price of what that dealership is making is about a $2,000 spread. So this dealership we just looked at, they're trying to pad their bottom line, or at least on the front end, by about $10,000. And throughout this video, we're going to pull up a couple more invoice prices. And we also want to talk about Ford earnings. So you had some interesting things that you wanted to point out from Ford earnings. We had a bunch of, we had a big net decline of income, but let's just talk about that for a little bit.
Well, first off, I am shocked that Ford dealership, and I'm assuming it's in your neck of the woods. Talk about people living in the past. This is not 2021. This is not. There's vast shortages of chips available to be able to build Broncos. This is just these people living in the past trying to take advantage of some customer out there that doesn't know better. And as I say about every dealership, you can't get what you don't ask for. But my goodness gracious, in today's world, there is no reason that a dealer A should be asking 10 grand over on a Bronco four-door, or more importantly, a customer ever agreeing to pay anything over MSRP on a Bronco at the moment. It's just, that's pure lunacy.
It's absolutely crazy. Now let's rotate over to the main topic of what we need to talk about today, and that's Ford, that they just released their earnings.
Yes.
And they're saying that the tariffs are going to cost about $1.5 billion, and their Q1 net income dives 65%. And this is before we have any tariff effect that really comes into play. Now, I believe Ford is going to get hit on tariffs a little bit less than GM, from what I understand, and a little bit less than what Stellantis, from what I'm reading too. But still, all these auto manufacturers are going to get absolutely hammered with what's coming in the system. We also have a lot of pull forward in demand. My anticipation is that the next quarters for a lot of these automakers are actually going to be pretty good, or at least they should be pretty good from all the sales that we're seeing right now. But Q3 might be a big problem for a lot of these auto manufacturers, as a lot of these dealers start turning away allocations from the lack of sales that they're going to be having when sales start to dry up after all the FOMO that's moving through the system right now.
I was shocked, and what shocked me was the first quarter's January 1 through March 31st. Tariffs didn't go into effect until April 3rd. So for Ford to say it cost us $1.5 billion in quarter one due to tariffs, and the reality is what they said is it was $2.5 billion, but they had $1 billion offset, so the net was only $1.5 billion. And this is before tariffs are in effect. What is it going to look like when tariffs have an impact, when tariffs literally are on these vehicles, and how it impacts their profit? And yeah, I agree with you. Once the pull forward effect wears off, and we have seen both in March and April that there was a huge pull forward effect where people who were considering cars didn't want to wait until there were price increases due to tariffs, so they bought sooner rather than later. And ultimately what's going to happen is, I think car sales are going to like hit a brick wall, because there are only two types of people in America right now: those who can afford to buy a car, and they are limited, and those who no longer feel as if they can, and that is the vast majority. So once these people the small minority of people who feel as if they can still afford to buy a car, buy their cars, and then they're done, then it just like hits a cliff, and sales will fall off the cliff.
And here's the thing. I've seen some comments on you guys' videos, and I've seen the comments on my videos saying that, okay, what I'm saying and what Car Edge is saying or what we're predicting are completely the opposite things. And it's not really. I feel like the understanding that we have is completely the same. I think the narrative that we're spinning with it when we're running these videos is different, where you guys, I think, are taking a what's happening right now, and I'm looking 6 to 8 months out when I'm talking about this. But in my view, I'm talking about, I think prices in 6 months from now are going to be the same price, if not lower than what they are right now. And I feel like there's going to be initial like bump up in prices. And we're experiencing that now. We're seeing that now in the data, where dealerships are going to try to get as much as they can right now because of all the pull forward in demand, all the threats that these salespeople are able to give to these buyers, saying, well, you better buy it right now because in 2 months from now, it's going to be 25% more expensive. That's a lie, by the way, right? There's no manufacturer out there. There's no dealer out there that's going to raise their prices by 25% and expect to even be able to sell anything. But that's what they're trying right now. And it's working on some consumers, and the uneducated consumers that, I won't say uneducated, the uninformed consumers that are going into these dealerships and paying those prices. Well, they're the ones that are bringing the average buying prices up right now. And those people are going to get washed out of the system. And I think we're both saying the same things. We're just saying it in a different way, where, okay, prices are going to go up initially, but just like you said, I think there's going to be a brick wall. And then on the other end of that, there's going to be no buyers. So that means dealerships, manufacturers are going to have to, the manufacturers are going to have to add incentives, do these special schemes, plans, like employee pricing to be able to lower prices for consumers. I think that's going to happen because there's just not going to be any buyers after the end of this FOMO period.
And I think the reality of the situation is that even after we fall off that cliff or hit that brick wall, whatever it is, and prices will go up. They're not going to go up 25%. They might go up 4%, 5%, 8%, but prices will go up. Okay. And that will cause more people to say, well, I don't want to play anymore. And so in order to try and spur whatever sales they can, yes, the manufacturers could increase the incentives. So what's that going to do? It will bring the prices back down to the levels that they're at now. And people are still going to be paying much more for a car today and moving forward than they had been 3, 4, 5 months ago. There is on the front page of Automotive News every day a tracker as to what the average new car asking price is. Yesterday, it dropped $70. We were down to $50,035 is the average new car price that's being asked. So are there going to be price increases because of tariffs? Yes. Could there be offsets for those price increases due to increased incentives from the manufacturers? I think that's a yes. Dropped another $31. Okay. And ultimately, the pricing is going to remain about what it is today. Okay. Even though the price will go up, the discount's going to bring it back down to what it is today. It's not like, suddenly there's going to be huge savings. People are going to still end up paying about what they're paying for a car today. The asking price will be more, but through incentives, the actual price will turn out to be about what it is right now.
Yeah. So
in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. I even think it's going to be a step farther. I think the incentives are going to have to come in a little bit harder, I think, than you believe, just because they can't sell no cars, and I think it's not going to be no cars. Don't take me literally for what I'm saying. I have a tendency to exaggerate, knowing the way I need to make titles and stuff like that. But it's not going to be that they're going to sell no cars. It's just going to be, I mean, brick wall analogy is, I think, the best thing that that we can use to explain, I think, what's going to happen after this waterfall of all this FOMO is done. And I think what we're experiencing now is that it's almost done right now. I know on the used car side of things, typically when new car sales go up, used car sales tend to follow a little bit. And we're not seeing that right now as far as the lower end of at least the spectrum, the dealers that I'm talking to. We're all slow right now. I mean, I just had a meeting with my sales manager and Alex, my mechanic who buys a lot of my cars, that we're cutting prices right now. We're a dealership that sells cars that are $5,000 and under. And right now, all the cars that I'm buying are cheaper right now than they were 3 and 4 months ago. My prices are going down. Dealerships that are buying the same range of stuff that I am, and the mid-tier stuff that's a little bit above what I'm buying, that stuff is all going down because those dealerships are experiencing weakness. And we're also getting a surplus of trade-ins into the market right now because new car dealers are actually moving metal. So when you have a weakness from my customers and you have a weakness from dealerships, well, that can cause downward pressure on the wholesale values of the stuff that I'm seeing. And I think this is a lot of what I disagree with the data that I'm seeing, because the upper end is going to drive a lot of the wholesale data. And that stuff is still going up because the new car dealers are selling more right now. They're trying to get their hands on everything. They're pushing up prices. But the mid-tier stuff and down, that stuff is actually falling right now. So the data is weird right now.
That's one of the areas where I see comments, well, who's lying? Is it you or Brandon? No, they're two different markets. Okay. You're dealing in a very specialized market, $5,000 and under vehicles. The newer, younger, lower mileage vehicles are absolutely spiking on wholesale values. Doesn't mean that the $5,000 cars are spiking. They're two completely different markets. CarMax is not competing with you to have $5,000 cars on their lot. They want to have cars that are from 20,000 on up. Those are the cars that they're paying a lot of money for. So when people say, well, who's telling the truth? We're both telling the truth. We're talking about two different ends of the spectrum. And if there was an increase in new car sales in March and April, and that means there was an increase in trades of all kinds, including the kinds of trades that you're interested in. And as dealers get those, they take those to the auction right away, which is why you're seeing more of them and able to buy them for less. Now, the vehicles, you're not going to see a lot of these at the sale, are the 1, 2, and 3-year-old cars that have 10, 15, 20,000 miles on them. And those
dealerships are keeping them.
Yeah, and the dealers are either keeping them, or the ones that are making it to the sale are getting bid up either around MMR Manheim market or slightly above. And so both stories can be true because they're different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, but the thing too is, I think because of the type of buyer that's getting into those type of vehicles, and for whatever shortage that dealers want to make up for themselves, and CarMax believing that there's going to be a shortage of these nicer, newer cars because people are just going to stop buying, so they're loading up. So that's why you see Carvana, CarMax, their actual offering prices are going up. I think this is all very short-lived. Everyone's freaking out, especially in the car industry. The only way that we can make money is by moving product. The only way we can move product is by having product. So if there's any scare of not having product, well, then product is going to go up because there's going to be FOMO into actually buying product. Just like the average consumer is doing right now, rushing to a new car dealer to buy a car before the price goes up. Average car dealers are doing the exact same thing right now. We're seeing new manufacturers, new manufacturer car dealers are actually buying more used cars. They're going to auction and buying more of those used cars. Every Nissan dealership, every Chrysler, Dodge, and Ram dealership right now too, they're becoming glorified used car dealers. They're going to auctions. They're buying a lot of these quality 2-3-year-old cars because they can actually make money on those cars. They can't make money on Nissans. They can't make money on Jeeps right now, but they can make money on the front end of used cars. So that's what a lot of them are also doing. So that's another problem for us as used car dealers right now.
And they're anticipating that ultimately there will be a shortage of new vehicles or a shortage of new vehicle customers because of the expected increase in MSRPs on the new cars. And that's why they're stocking up on 1, 2, 3, 4-year-old cars. So as I said, both points of view are legitimate and correct because we're talking about two different ends of that spectrum. And I believe I said to you, I don't know if sometime in April or at the end of March, I said, if new car sales are up, that should bode well for you because those dealers are going to be taking a lot of the cars they don't want, the cars that you want, but that they don't want. Those vehicles are going to make their way to the auctions sooner rather than later. And I believe you're seeing that.
Yeah, and it can actually create. We'll get back to Ford in a second. I know that's what the title of the video is, and I've got it queued up here. But just so this is very important for the car market and the direction that we're going. So I want to touch on this anyway. But what I'm seeing right now is like a Goldilocks situation for us acquiring inventory because there's a lot of dealers that are slow and weak and loaded up for tax time, didn't have a tax time, so they're not at the auctions right now. We're having more trade-ins come into the auction, so we're having an increase of supply. We're able to go in there and buy cars. And yes, prices are down. I know I see the MMR average. You need to take MMR. And I know you guys are with Black Book and stuff. Look, I don't trust the numbers, whatever. But anyway, so all these companies are owned by somebody who benefits from prices being higher. So,
let's say this. MMR is based entirely on Mannheim. Okay, Cox Automotive, that's based entirely on Mannheim, which represents, I believe it's 50 or 55% of all wholesale transactions occur at a Mannheim auction. Black Book, for example, utilizes the information from 95% of all wholesale purchases and sales. So I kind of trust Black Book's numbers a little more only because they utilize a larger percentage of all wholesale transactions to come up with their reports. I would rather go with the one that's using 95% of what's happening as opposed to the one that's using 50 to 55%. And that's not taking anything away from Cox Automotive or what's happening at Mannheim because they are the most popular auctions out there. They are. There's no disputing that. But I think the more information you can have, the tracking the greater number of transactions gives you a slightly clearer picture as to what's going on.
And I can tell you the reason why I don't like any of this data that I won't say I don't like any of it, but the reason I don't like using this for actual values because it's not giving you a true market price, in my opinion, because it's only tracking off the actual sell data. So if you have 3 F-150s that go through the auction and one of them, they're all the same thing. One of them sells for $25,000 and the other 2 get bid up to only $15,000, but the seller won't sell them for that. Well, the true market value on the F-150 for what buyers will actually pay for it is somewhere around $21,000. The average of those 3, 20,000, 19,000, somewhere around there, whatever the average of those 3 is. But the data is going to show you that the market price on that F-150 is $25,000.
Yes.
Right. So
Yes.
that's why I don't like this data, is because it's not going to give you, it's going to give you the sell prices of what dealerships are actually willing to let go of some of these cars for. But typically that's going to track the upper end of the market, because you know that their reserves are going to be up. And as they don't sell them, then they can bring them down. But the true market price is probably somewhere down here, because it's not tracking the if bids. It's not tracking the no sales that go through the
Exactly.
auction.
It doesn't average in the no sales. And that's a big portion of it. So yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I would love for them to come out with something where they can actually track the highest bid per vehicle, and then we average it off of the highest bid of what a buyer will actually pay for the vehicle versus what the dealership will actually be willing to sell the car for.
I think the way to do that, in essence, is to look at the conversion rate every week. If, for instance, it wasn't too long ago where only about 50% of all auction vehicles that were offered were getting sold.
Yep.
So that conversion rate tells you a lot. I think today that number is probably closer to 63, 65%. But if it's even 63, that means 37% of the vehicles that were at the auction that week were offered for sale, and nobody could bid them up enough to get the buyer to say, yes, I'll sell it. So yeah, you have to factor that in as to what the real market values are.
Right. And if you have weakness in the market and you have a 50% sell-through rate at some of these auctions, the MMRs and the black book value, you might as well just throw them away, because they don't mean anything at that point.
I hear you.
But anyway, let's get back to Ford. Let's pull up a quote that you thought was interesting coming from Ford, and they were talking about actually strengthening their business by significantly leaning into their quality. So let's talk about quality just a little bit. You had me pull up a chart of the last 12 months, and this is our recall data right here, and you can see that big.
That's not even the last 12 months. That's year to date.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't do it right then.
Yeah,
this year.
You did it right. That's year to date. That's
Okay.
This year. That's January 1st through now. And Ford's claim to fame is the reason that their profits are down not as much as others is because they've dramatically improved their quality. This chart shows that there are 45 recalls from Ford just this year. And that's after significantly improving their quality. Imagine where they'd be if they were down where I think General Motors was with 13, as opposed to 45. So, I read these articles and you listen to what they have to say, and you really have to read between the lines, because it is just filled with so much corporate BS. We have significantly improved our quality issues and control over the last 3 quarters. Really? Why do you have 45 recalls in the first 4 months of this year? Where would you be if you hadn't significantly improved everything? And how you don't like you don't think auction numbers are really reflective of the market. I don't think earnings reports are truly reflective of what's going on, because they are filled with such absolute BS. For Jim Farley to A, articulate it, and B, be quoted for having said that, when all you have to do is click on the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration to see where everybody's at recall-wise, is like pure nonsense. I'm sorry, I got on a little rant there.
I got a question for you, because you've been in this a long time. You've been with a lot of different manufacturers. You've seen a lot of trade-ins come in. Do you feel like the quality issues, recalls, whatever, are they worse now than they ever had? Because I'm looking back over the last 12 months. We have Toyota Motors replaced. We have GM right now dealing with motors being replaced. We have Ford with all their stuff always going on. We have Ram that's challenged Ford for being, or Stellantis being the top recalled brand ever. So we have all of this. Honda has had brakes. They've had motor issues over the last 12 months. Is this the worst that it's ever been as far as quality and major issues?
I don't know. I think that one time, didn't Ford have an issue, I think in the 70s and the 80s with their automatic transmissions? And I think it affected, I don't know. I want to say somewhere around 21 million vehicles, where you put the automatic transmission in park. At least it said you put it in park, but it was really in reverse. And they knew it for years and did nothing about it. So is it worse today, or is it just reported differently today? And how did I do? Look at that.
Yeah, in the 1880s, Ford faced a major recall due to a defect in automatic transmissions. And it could cause vehicles to slip from park into reverse. That's a bad thing.
And it only impacted 22 million vehicles. Okay, so when you say, is it worse today? I don't know that it's worse today. It's more publicized today. We have more opportunity to hear about it today than we did back then. Because in the early 80s, there weren't as many resources available to people to get that type of information. So I think it's important that recalls are tracked. I think it's important that the manufacturers try and do a much better job with the vehicles that they're producing than what they have been doing. But I don't necessarily think it's worse today than it was then. It just seems to be like they're slightly bigger issues when it happens today. Like, we have to replace 100,000 engines. Okay, that's a big deal. But when you have to try and repair 22 million automatic transmissions, that could get costly.
That's a lot. It just seems like over manufactured. Like I've always heard of, we've dealt with Honda airbags forever.
Yeah. Well, Takata airbags,
yeah. And Nissan's had its run of recalls. The thing about it is, it feels like severe recalls. Like I've ever since I've been doing this, I always get like Fords that I'll put, like Ford Escapes, Ford Explorers. There'll be like open recall whenever I buy a car. It'll be something like a seatbelt or something.
Yes.
Something. A seatbelt's not a small thing. It's a safety concern, but the issue is a relatively easy fix. The recalls that I remember dealing with throughout my 14 years of being a used car dealer, but I don't remember there ever being like a 12-month span where you have multiple brands replacing hundreds of thousands of motors all in the same 12-month period.
No, I agree. I think the cost and type of recall is much different today. Because when you're talking about the engine, when you're talking about a motor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the most important piece of the vehicle, because it doesn't go anywhere when the motor doesn't work. Okay, if the motor fails, the whole damn thing fails. So that's pretty significant. The transmission issue for Ford, it was only an issue if you parked your car on a driveway that was slanted and you thought you had it in park and it was literally in reverse and it rolled backwards into the street or into the kid riding his bike. That's the car still worked. You could still drive the car, but when the motor doesn't work, you can't drive the car. So yes, I agree with you. It's the size of the recall that seems much more significant today And what I mean by size is the most important aspect of the vehicle, as opposed to what it was back in the day.
Speaking of transmission issues, I got a good story from one of the cars that we've bought and sold. We bought a Ford Explorer one time, and it drove perfectly, clean, great car. It would not go in reverse, and so we didn't know this. I mean, we check out the cars as best we can. Now we put the cars in gear, put them in reverse too, to make sure everything go. But sometimes we miss stuff, and this has been probably 7-8 years ago or whatever. I bought this car, and I had to explain it to my team, like, how did I miss this? Well, I meant to buy this because here at my car dealership, we only look forward. We don't look backwards. So we're not worried about going backwards. But anyway, so because of this, it passed inspection, everything. I don't know how, whatever. We had it on our lot. And it's just funny. Every time we had a customer come in and look at it, we marked it down to where we were losing. Like, we sold it for like $500 or something. Like this. And everybody would see the $500 on the windshield, and that's the first car they would go straight to. And they'd be like, "Oh, what's going on with this car?" Well, it won't back up. And we finally found one customer that came in and said, "You know what? Let me drive it." Drove it around perfectly, checked out, perfect everything. He's like, "You know what? $500 car. I'll drive this thing until the whole thing falls apart, and I'll just pull straight into pull straight through and park at the end of the Walmart parking lot." But anyway, we bought this thing, and I don't know how only one gear was out of this thing, and the rest of it was just perfect. But it was a Ford Explorer. But I did promise everyone that I would pull up a truck price, an invoice price, and I found one. It's a 2025 F-150 Lariat, 4-wheel drive. MSRP $76,000. You want to buy a $76,000 truck, Ray?
Well, I don't, but and my guess is there's not quite as many people out there as Ford was hoping that wanted to buy a $76,000 truck. But the good news is there's $5,000 worth of margin built into that damn thing.
Yeah, so they got room on it, and let's see here. Market day supply on that thing is 158 days. I want to see if they've actually lowered the price on this one. Can we show this through Car Edge? I thought we could.
Yeah, there should be the prices.
I must have missed it.
Yeah, it's probably scroll down just a tad.
All right, I'm pulling a Zach here and doing something live on a show.
You should never do that. I tell you, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it.
All right, well, it's not on here, so maybe they just didn't lower the price. Anyway, so it's just really okay. So you can look at this invoice pricing. At the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything for you as a consumer. That's what the dealership on paper actually paid for it, but they get a lot of money after the fact. In a lot of cases, they're even doing this employee discount pricing right now where they'll take $2,500 off the invoice price, but that's only going to equate to about 10% off this truck. And before they even implemented that thing, I'm just going back to Ford, and I mentioned scheme plan earlier. Before they even implemented this employee pricing, a good discount on an F-150 was 15% off. So you could have got a better price negotiating off the regular MSRP before you got the employee pricing, from what I've seen with Car Edge and what I've seen watching like Tommy from Delivered negotiate some of these deals too.
The concept, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The concept of employee pricing is that it creates a much quicker transaction for the customer. Okay. The customer says, let me drive the vehicle. I like the vehicle. Okay. Show me the invoice and what the employee pricing is on it, because it's printed right on the invoice. It'll be less than what the invoice cost to the dealer was. And the customer sees it. That's the price. Okay, I'll buy it. End of sentence. You didn't have to spend 3 hours negotiating back and forth to get down to that price or an even cheaper price. So I said when they first came out with this, the whole concept is to make it quicker and easier for customers. Ford sales were up, 16%, 18%, something like that in April. Why? Because it is easier for customers to do a transaction than it had been in the past. People prefer not having to negotiate, not having to fight over this. And is the price as good as it might have been if you were a really good negotiator in the past? Probably not. Is it easier? Is there value in spending 1 hour to buy a car as opposed to 5 hours? Well, some people place a value on their time. So I just, my personal, it was just to make it easier for people. And, realistically, it makes it easier for the salesperson. So the salesperson can actually help more customers during the course of the day and sell more cars during the course of the day. Is it necessarily a cheaper price than it would have been before for a master negotiator? Probably not. It's just easier. And I know Ford's extended it to what, July 4th. You don't think they're going to keep extending it? If it incrementally improves sales and ultimately improves customer satisfaction with the sales process, Ford's going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's working for them too. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I just hope people that are listening and listen to you guys' videos, listen to my videos. Like I went to a Honda dealership. I negotiated a vehicle for my wife. The time thing, I think I can push back a little bit because, I mean, if you go in there with your number, you know what you're going to pay for it. You don't have to spend hours in the dealership. We were there. We negotiated for like 12 minutes and I got my final number, and that's it. If you go in there knowing what you're a reasonable number that you can pay, you're not going to go in there and get 25% off. Don't think that. But if you go in there and you know that a good price on a vehicle is 10-15% off of MSRP, you go in there and say, I will pay this. If you don't want to give it to me, that's fine. Name the next Ford dealership that's down the road. Say, I'm going straight to them right after. I want to do business with you, but I'll go straight to them right after that. If you don't want to give me this, no problem. I'm going to walk out the door. And then you stand up. You can end your negotiation very quickly and know if they're going to get you that number or if they're not.
You are the exception and not the rule, because most people aren't good at that. Which is why for most people it's a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hour process, because they don't realize that they've got all the power. All they have to do is get up and walk the hell out. The most powerful 2-letter word in sales for the customer is to say no and get up. But most people can't and don't. And so, you are the exception. You are not the rule. Trust me. I spent 43 years dealing with people who were the rule and not the exception. I'm just me being me.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can teach some people. And anyway, I think we've been full of hot air for 38 minutes now and released it to the internet, and I'm sorry about that.
I don't think you should be sorry. I think there were some valuable pearls of wisdom expressed and floated in that hot air today. So nothing to apologize for.
Well, thank you guys for watching this. For me, for Ray, for my wife, for the other Brandon, that's producer, editor. We thank you guys for watching this, and we hope you have a great day. And maybe we'll be here next week. No, we'll see.
I think so. That's my plan.
So.
Yeah,
I think so. All right, see you guys next week, Tuesday, 1:30.
Yeah, that's